Take a single handful of grass seed and hold it in your palm. That's about $1's worth, yet that modest amount can achieve what $50 of fertilizer, a brand new sprinkler system, and 3 weekends of hard work cannot. It can make your lawn noticeably thicker in just a few weeks. Most homeowners walk right past the bag of seed at the garden center and reach for everything else first. They spend money on weed killers, on aeration, on fancy hose attachments, on liquid lawn boosters that promise miracles. Meanwhile, the one product that actually determines how dense your grass becomes sits on the bottom shelf and costs less than a cup of coffee. Here's the truth. Nobody tells you a thin lawn is almost never a fertilizer problem. It's a population problem. You don't have unhealthy grass. You simply don't have enough grass. No amount of feeding, watering, or pampering the plants you already have will fill a gap that has nothing growing in it. You can pour all the nutrients in the world onto bare soil, and it will remain bare. Today I'll explain exactly how that cheap handful of seed works, why it outperforms almost everything else you can buy, and the small handful of mistakes that cause people to waste their seed every year. When you understand the why behind it, you'll never look at a thin lawn the same way again. Why your lawn got thin in the first place. Let's start with something that surprises almost everyone. Grass plants are not immortal. We tend to think of a lawn as one big permanent green carpet that just sits there year after year. In reality, it isn't a carpet at all. It's a crowd. Your lawn is made of thousands and thousands of individual grass plants, all packed tightly together. And like any living thing, each one has a lifespan. They age, they tire, they thin out, and when enough of them quietly die, you're left with the thin, patchy. What happened? Look, that drives homeowners crazy. When you see a thin spot, your instinct is to feed it. More nitrogen, more water, more attention. Feeding does help the surviving plants grow a little taller and greener, but taller is not thicker. A tall, lonely grass plant is still one plant. It can't reach over and fill the empty space next to it out of sheer willpower. Density doesn't come from bigger plants. Density comes from more plants. That distinction is the entire secret. How grass spreads, and why yours might not. Grass species fall into two broad categories based on how they grow, and this single fact explains a huge amount of frustration. Spreading grasses send out little horizontal runners. Some run underground as rhizomes, others travel along the surface as stolons. These runners crawl sideways, pop up a new plant a few inches away, and slowly knit the lawn together. Kentucky bluegrass and Bermuda are classic examples. If you have a spreading grass and you tear a small hole in the lawn, it will often heal itself over a season or two because the plants are physically growing into the gap. There's bunch grasses, tall fescue being the most common, grow in clumps. They get a little wider at the base, but they essentially stay put. They have no mechanism to travel across an open patch and colonize it. So if a tall fescue plant dies and leaves a bare spot, that spot will stay open forever. There is nothing in the biology to close it, and this catches many people off guard. If you have a bunch type lawn, waiting for it to fill in on its own is like waiting for a parking lot to sprout trees. It will never happen because the plants simply cannot move. The only way new plants appear in a bunch lawn is if a new seed lands, touches soil, and sprouts. That is why the cheapest, most reliable way to add plants to a lawn isn't to coax the existing ones into doing something they physically can't do. It is to introduce brand new plants directly. That process is called overseeding. You are not replacing your lawn, you are sliding thousands of new young plants into the gaps between the old ones, raising the population and letting the whole thing thicken from the ground up. The 4 hidden factors of successful overseeding. Knowing you should seed is only part of the story. Most people fail not because the idea is wrong, but because the execution is off. The 4 critical elements are contact, rate, timing, and water. Poikwe 1. Seed 2, soil contact. The first hidden factor is that seed must actually touch the soil. A common mistake is to buy a bag of seed, walk out to the lawn, fling it across the top of the grass as if feeding chickens, and then walk away satisfied. 2 weeks later, nothing appears, and the seed is declared junk. In most cases, the seed was fine. The problem was that it never reached the soil. Seed lying on top of thick grass blades or a layer of old, dead thatch never gets the steady moisture it needs to awaken. It simply sits there drying out in the sun until a bird eats it or the wind blows it away. This is the single most overlooked detail in the entire process, which is why lawn professionals repeat the phrase seed-to-soil contact like a mantra. Before you spread seed, open up the surface a little. You don't need expensive equipment. A simple metal rake dragged across the lawn will scratch the surface, tear out some of that dead, spongy thatch, and expose pockets of bare soil. Mowing the lawn a bit shorter than usual right before you seed helps even more because the seed can fall all the way down to the dirt instead of getting caught in tall blades. The goal is simple. You want your seed nestled against soil, not perched on top of a forest. A quick test will tell you if thatch is the barrier. Walk out and run your fingers down into the lawn until you hit dirt. If you encounter more than about half an inch of dry, brown, spongy material between the green blades and the actual soil, that's thatch. Rake some of it out and you've already dramatically improved your odds before spending a cent on seed. Find up in point 2. Proper seed rate. The second hidden factor is how much seed you actually apply. People err in both directions. Some barely sprinkle any seed, treating a tiny bag like it must last all year. They spread a whisper of seed across a huge area, and only a few plants emerge, leaving the lawn unchanged. You can't build a crowd out of a few stragglers. On the opposite end, some think that if a little is good, a mountain must be better. They dump seed so thick it forms a solid mat. That fails too because all those baby plants compete for the same water, light, and soil. They become tall, weak, and spindly, and many collapse. Overcrowding kills. The sweet spot depends on your grass type. For overseeding an existing lawn that's just a little thin, tall fescue likes roughly 4 to 6 pounds of seed per 1,000 square feet. Perennial ryegrass is similar, around 4 to 6 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Kentucky bluegrass seed is much finer, so you need far less, often only 1 to 2 pounds per 1,000 square feet. If you're trying to fill genuinely bare spots from scratch, bump those numbers up a bit because bare soil needs a denser stand to establish. The trick most people miss is to spread seed in 2 passes that cross each other. Walk north to south with half your seed, then walk east to west with the other half. This criss-cross pattern gives you even coverage and prevents the streaky, striped look you get when you try to do it all in one direction. It takes only 30 extra seconds and makes a visible difference. Kway 3. Timing. The third hidden factor is timing. Seed is not a year-round product. even though it's sold year-round. A grass seed is essentially a tiny sleeping plant waiting for the right conditions to wake up. The factor it cares about most isn't the air temperature you feel on your skin, it's the temperature of the soil. For cool season grasses, which cover most northern lawns and a huge chunk of the country, the seed wakes up and roots best when soil temperatures sit roughly between 50 and 65 degrees Fahrenheit. The best window for that isn't spring, when everyone feels motivated and garden centers are packed. It's fall. Think about what fall offers a baby grass plant. The soil is still warm from summer, so the seed germinates quickly. The air is cooling down, so the young plant isn't getting cooked. There's usually more reliable rain and morning dew. And perhaps the biggest reason of all, the weeds are shutting down for the year. In spring, every crabgrass and weed seed in your soil wakes up at the same time as your grass. They're aggressive and will smother your tender seedlings before they get going. In fall, your new grass grows in peace with almost no competition. It roots deep over the cool months, survives the winter, and explodes into a thick, established lawn the following spring. Fall overseeding is the single most underrated move in lawn care. Spring is the second best window if fall slips away, but you must get it done early, before the heat and the weeds arrive. Summer is the worst possible time for cool season seed. The soil is too hot, the surface dries out in hours, and seedlings that do emerge tend to fry. If you've been seeding in July and wondering why it never takes, the seed wasn't the problem, the calendar was. If you have a warm season lawn down south, Bermuda, zoysia, or similar, the logic flips. Those grasses want warm soil, so late spring into early summer is their moment. The principle is identical. Match your seed to the season its roots actually want, and it does 90% of the work for you. 5.4, watering. The fourth hidden factor is water, and it's where most people quit too soon. You've got contact, the right rate, and you've nailed the timing. One job remains, and it trips up more people than all the others combined. A germinating seed is incredibly fragile in one specific way. Once it absorbs moisture and cracks open to send out its first tiny root, it cannot be allowed to dry out, not even once. If that little root dries up, the seed dies, and there's no second chance for that individual seed. The watering rule for new seed is the opposite of how you water an established lawn. Normally, we tell people to water deep and infrequent, soaking the soil once or twice a week to push roots down. Brand new seed has no roots yet. It can't reach down for anything. It lives entirely off the moisture in the top quarter of an inch of soil, and that layer dries out fast in the sun. For new seed, flip the rule completely, water lightly and often. A short, gentle watering once or even twice a day, just enough to keep the surface dark and damp, never letting it bake dry between waterings. You're not trying to soak it deep, you're trying to keep that surface consistently moist while the seeds wake up. Impatience kills lawns at this stage. People water faithfully for 4 or 5 days, see nothing, assume failure, and stop. Different grasses take different amounts of time. Perennial ryegrass might pop up in 5 to 7 days. Tall fescue often takes 1 to 2 weeks. Kentucky bluegrass is the slow poke and can take 3 weeks or more to show its face. If you quit watering on day 6 because you're bored, you've killed bluegrass seed that was about 2 weeks from sprouting. Patience here isn't a virtue. It's the whole job. Once the seedlings are up and you've mowed them a couple of times, then and only then do you gradually shift back to deeper, less frequent watering to train those young roots to dig down while they're germinating water light and often every single day with no exceptions. A simple way to check whether it's even working about a week to 10 days after seeding. Get down on your hands and knees and look closely at the soil surface, right at dirt level. You're not looking for a green lawn yet. You're looking for a faint green fuzz, tiny thread, thin blades just barely poking up. They're so small most people standing at full height can't see them and assume nothing happened. Get down low and you'll spot them. If you see that faint fuzz, it's working. Your only job now is to keep watering and stay out of the way. If you want to know whether your soil is even ready to take seed in the first place, grab a screwdriver and try to push it into the ground. If it slides in easily, your soil is loose enough for roots to establish. If it stops dead as if hitting concrete, your soil is compacted, and that's a sign you'd benefit from loosening or aerating before you seed. Seed dropped onto rock, hard ground struggles to root no matter how perfectly you do everything else. Finally, putting it all together, here's the full picture for almost nothing. Wait for the right season, fall for most lawns. Mow a little shorter than usual and rake the surface to clear out dead thatch and exposed soil. Spread your seed at the proper rate for your grass type in 2 crossing passes for even coverage. Water lightly once or twice a day and don't quit early, giving it up to 3 weeks depending on the grass. Then let nature take over. Every part of that costs almost nothing. The seed itself is the cheapest input in the entire lawn care world per square foot of improvement. The rake you probably already own. The water is pennies. There's no machine to rent, no chemical to spray, no specialist to hire. The payoff is the one thing every other product only pretends to deliver. A genuinely thicker lawn built from thousands of new plants you personally added to the population. A dense lawn does more